Welcome back to another episode of The Painful Purpose, the platform where we discuss different philosophies of mental discipline and engage with some of the most exceptional minds to unravel the paths and principles taken in their pursuit to mental mastery. Today, we have a very special guest named Devon Edwards. Devon is an entrepreneur, he's a holistic wellness coach, he's also a mental health counselor, and an ultramarathoner in the last few days preparing for his first 100-mile race. He's also a very good friend of mine, somebody who, frankly, I would not be here, and this podcast would not exist without him being a part of my life. Devon, thank you, man.
My brother.
We've been talking about knocking this one out for a while.
Excited to be here, bro.
Yeah, thank you. I think in my introductory episode of this podcast, I talked about you, and really the first few minutes of the show, I explained how much I've learned through our conversations over time, and how my mission with this platform is to share those stories and those lessons and that wisdom with other people who may not have the opportunity to be next to someone like yourself or like myself in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you for creating that inspiration within me and continuing to do it with other people. And it's true. Like one of the first things of many that we talk about is like the power of good company and how that impacts everything that you do in your life. As we talk about, we first met at a race. It was a lonely race, I think, for the two of us.
Mm-hmm.
But in the coming days after that, when we first started linking up and running and just learning more about each other and passing around wisdom and lessons, I think that the two of us have grown. At least I've grown a ton, and you've definitely made a lot of things easier, especially when it comes to working out and being a better man in general. I think that you have a lot to speak on those topics, and I'm just really grateful for you, man. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Excuse my voice to those that are listening. A little bit raspy right now. Coming out of a sickness, which is just a little bit of adversity before this javelina. Needed, though. A little necessary.
Let's talk about javelina.
Let's get into it.
So where did the idea to put yourself in a position where you're going to run 100 miles with your 2 feet in one day?
Yeah,
Where did that come from?
So it goes way back, honestly. High school, football was everything to me. I didn't know much besides football. It was like Devon, oh yeah, he plays football. It wasn't anything else. It wasn't he's cool. It wasn't he's nice. It wasn't he's spiritual. It wasn't, it was just Devon, oh, he's good at football. So that's where it started.
Okay. So
I get I don't know where this comes from. I'm an only child. So somewhere, some way, it came into, I'm going to set something and I'm just going to go for it, like all in, and try to achieve it. So initially it was the NFL, and, through high school I was doing pretty well at football, looking at some D1 schools. I wanted to play top level D1, but I don't know if I was big enough, fast enough, strong enough, all these things. Used to go to combines and these dudes are running 4.2s, which is like for football, it's stupid fast, 4.3, 4.4, whatever. I was like 4.6, 4.8. So I wasn't the fastest. I didn't jump the highest. I didn't go, but I loved football and I was good at it. And I think I was pretty savvy.
What position were you?
A little running back, this is kind of the story of my life too.
Okay.
What is it? Joker of all trades.
Okay.
Whatever the fuck that is.
Jack of all trades.
That's the one.
Jack of all trades.
Master of none. Even though I don't like that little second part. But so I did everything and played a little quarterback, receiver, running back, everything, you name it. And so I'm going into my senior year. I'm doing well. I'm looking at a couple D1 schools from the Northeast, back where I'm from. And, our school, we were set to have like state championship type year. And I still have dreams about it because I'm like, that team was nice. Like we were so good. And we just had ballers everywhere on the field. And I was set out to have a really good year. I was getting looked at a lot that year. And we started the year really strong. I started pretty strong as well. So I'm still looking at these schools. I'm doing these visits, went to these camps, and it's about the 4th game into the year. I'm playing against a couple of my best friends on the other team, and I'm playing running back, and I had the ball. I got like a sweep or something, and I'm running into the end zone, and no one touched me. And I just planted my foot in this type of way. I don't know why I did it, but I planted it on grass, and I just felt my knee just buckle. It felt like when you take a Poland Spring water bottle and you twist it, and it just
Oh, man.
And the ball flew out of my hand. I'm laying on the ground. I was just like, this does not feel right. Tried to stand up, couldn't put pressure down on it. And I was just like, man, I am fucked right now.
That was your senior year.
Senior year, bro. 4th game in, I'm like trying to go D1, get a scholarship, make my mom proud, all the things. Hopefully ball out in D1, maybe squeak my way into like practice team NFL. That was the dream. And so now I'm halfway through my senior year, and it kind of started because I had my ACL torn. That's what I figured out. So now I'm like, oh shit, who am I? Like, who is Devon? I started going to PT, and something else didn't feel right. I was like, what is going on? What's wrong right now? I was like hot. I felt like I had the flu. I was like, what is going on? Ended up going to the doctors. Somehow, some way, following my surgery, I ended up getting sepsis. So I got sepsis. So now I have a whole
Holy shit.
Yeah, global infection going through my body, or virus, or you name it, science folks. But can't go back to school. So now I'm getting homeschooled. So now not only am I not playing football, but I'm not going to school. I'm a senior. I'm definitely not getting looked at by D1 schools because now I'm just another dude who can barely walk. I had to get a IV arm, or a PICC line actually in my arm. And basically what that is, it's like an IV that goes from your bicep all the way up through your arm, down, and it dumps in your chest somewhere.
Wow.
I don't fucking know.
This is serious, dude.
Serious. Yeah. I lost about 25 pounds, depressed. First time I put words to, wow, I do not feel good. Like I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling anxious. I don't really have a purpose or a point of living. I'm saying that as a 18-year-old, 17-year-old. So of course, like, my perspective is limited, but I'm just like, what's the point? I thought I was going to the NFL. Now I don't know. What do I do good? I guess I like science. Science is all right. So then from there, I had sepsis. I lost 25 pounds. I went to PT. My first physical therapist, good dude, but just busy. Like, he was just doing his job. He would just say, hey man, you're doing 10 of these, 12 of these, 15 of these. See you later.
Just like meeting the quota.
Me and the quota, and I'm just sitting in this dark room. I have an ice pack on my leg. I have fucking electrodes shooting into me, and I'm just staring at the ceiling. And I'm like, what? Who am I? What am I doing? Like, what is the point of living if you're not doing what you want to do in life? All these things. Fortunately, soon after that, I got another physical therapist, and this dude changed the outlook of my whole life. His name's Nick. And Nick, I'd come in, I see him. He was like a PT assistant. And he'd talk to me. He'd be like, what's up? Like, he'd hype me up. What's up, Dev? Like, he saw me play football because I played against his son. And he's like, oh, you're that man. You're that dude, right? And I was like, not currently, but I appreciate it. And he's like, yeah, all right, cool. We're going to get you back. We're going to do 10 squats. I'm going to sit here with you. He's talking to me. We're talking about football. We're talking about girls. We're talking about life goals. And he just amped me up from the inside out. And he gave me purpose again. He gave me something to look forward to. Even if I don't play football, I want to do what you do. He was a PT. I was like, I want to do what you do. So that's kind of where it all started.
Okay.
I was like, I'm going to be Nick when I get older. Of course, my football dreams didn't die. I'll fast forward the story a little bit, but ended up going to a D3 school. My knee was still bummed out. I'm like, I still want to play D1. Transferred into a community college because I didn't get into my D1 school out of college. My grades weren't good enough. And long story short, ended up getting into that D1 school, walked onto the team, played D1, only played spring semester, which is the caveat to my life. Only played spring semester, but somewhere in that spring semester playing D1 football, one, I didn't feel super healthy anymore, but two, I was just like, I don't really care about this that much anymore. I'd rather, like, I saw there's other aspects of life than just football. There's mental health, there's physical health, there's holistic well-being, and that's really what just inspired me. So Nick like looking back, he was that dude that kicked the ball down the hill.
He was the catalyst, right?
He was the catalyst.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, you asked about running, and I know I just gave you a roundabout story.
It's all stemmed from, like, I want to know how it started and how it built to where it is.
Exactly. So from there, I guess just kind of tailwinding off that, I set my mind to something and I achieve it. Like, it's just that straightforward. And I don't know. I somewhere down the line, I realized I really like running.
Were you running before we met, like longer distance? Because we met a year ago, about like roughly 13 months ago.
Yeah.
And it felt like you were getting into it, or that you obviously you were an exceptional athlete in general, right? Just from your football background, and like you're crazy strong and like, crazy ripped and whatever. But it seems like since I met you, well, I guess you had hit a 50K.
Yeah.
You'd done a 50K, which is 31 miles. But then this year you did a 50 miler, a 60 miler, and now 100, which are like
stepping up the ladder.
They're things that you have not done before.
Right.
Okay. So I guess it's early in the journey, but it's been a part of your life.
Running, it's another thing. I did track in high school.
Okay.
I'm a bigger dude, smaller dude, but thicker, dense. And I remember in high school, they were like, "Oh, bro. No, yeah. No, you can't be you're a sprinter for sure."
Okay.
And I'm like, all right, but I ain't the fastest. But I do have a mentality where I'm like, I can do things, whether it was with sprinting, whether it was with long jump. Like, there's certain things where I was like, I can't really get that much faster, but I know I can do things for a long time, and I can follow through. So anyways, that's kind of where it started. Coming out of that, I was like, all right, I need to stay fit. Like, what do I want to do? I thought it was Ironman. So I was like, I'm going to get into Ironman. So I'm going to go all in on that. I did 1/2 Ironman that got canceled during COVID, but we still flew out to Texas to do it, me and my boy. And I did the swim, I did the bike, I did the run. And I walked away from that, and I was like, I really don't like swimming that much.
Sucks.
Yeah, it is boring. I really don't like biking that much. I like running. So I'm like, bet. So I did a half marathon. My goal was kind of half marathon, because I knew I could. That was like a push for me at one point in my life.
Right.
From there, I was like, I want to do a full marathon optimally. From there, I want to do 50 miles optimally. From there, I knew one day I wanted to do 100 miles, just because I saw, these dogs that were just out there doing this crazy shit. And I'm like, I have the mentality to do that. I just have to put the training in order to do that. So, started there. I did a half marathon, achieved that. I actually did my first marathon this year, which is kind of crazy. Colfax.
The Colfax?
Yeah. Did a 50K. All right, so now we're at 31 miles. What's next up? We did 37 miles. I did that with one of my boys for his birthday. Did 43 miles. Signed up for 100 miles because I was like, that's a reach. And 50 miles was my training run out in Washington. So, yeah, it's just a mentality.
I understand. And the thing that I don't think people realize when they hear this is there are people who do the same stuff, but you do it in such a different way. It's not like you've been preparing for long periods of time and you have this, other than the 50-mile race, right? I'm kind of pointing my, like what I'm trying to say towards these 43-mile runs,
right,
and the 60-mile run that you did,
right,
where you just went out there on a Sunday and ran up Mount Sanitas. How many times?
It was 8-mile loops.
They're 8-mile loops. That's right.
So for 43 miles, what is that? 5 times?
Yeah, 5 times.
Yeah.
So what goes on in your mind when you are deciding to do these things? I remember when you did the 60 miles, which you did at Washington Park?
Yeah.
Washington Park in Denver, guys, is a 3-mile loop, right?
Like 2.5.
Okay, 2.5. So 60 miles, that's, 25 times, if not more.
Right.
And how long did that take?
I want to say 13 hours, some change.
Okay.
Yeah.
On a Sunday?
Saturday,
on
overnight.
Saturday.
Started 2 p.m., finished 4 a.m., 5 a.m.
Okay.
Yeah, 13 hours.
So I remember before that run, you had told me that God told you, you're doing 50 today.
Yeah,
That's what you told me. I don't know if you remember that.
That's good. That's good.
That's what you said. You said that, I don't know if you had a dream,
right,
or you just have that voice in your mind,
right,
that kind of tells you, hey, it's time to see if you're still the person that you strive to be. Is that what's, so walk me through that.
So going back to my ACL just for a second, when I tore it, I had a lot of time just staring at the ceiling because the sepsis, what it did to me, it put me in a lot of pain, and it made me feel like I was had the flu. So I was just sick and hot, but I couldn't sleep because pain is amplified when you're sick. So now I had someone busting my knee up, so the pain is already excruciating, but now I have sepsis and ACL tear at the same time. So I'm like, I can't sleep because of pain, but I felt sick as a dog because of sepsis. So I'm staring at the ceiling. Wasn't really watching TV a little bit, but I'm staring at the ceiling. And, I don't know what it is. I can't explain this from way back, but something comes into my head, and it's not my thought. It just enters my head, and I just sometimes run with it. Sometimes I let it slide, but when it's these visions, I just run with them. And I consider them visions from something higher, from God or spirit or higher self or whatever you want to call it. But at that time in my life, Buddhism came into my life. And, I just kept having these things come up of you should start meditating, you should look into Buddhism, you should do some readings. And I got heavy into Buddhism, spirituality, focusing on my meditation, focusing on letting things go. And I think it's exactly what I needed, whatever you want to call it, spirituality, higher self, gave me a token saying, hey man, you got to let go of some things right now. If I held on to the vision that I'm going to be in the NFL, I don't know what would happen. At that point in my life, I needed something to tell me it's okay to just become who you are and to learn more about yourself and to let go of things that aren't necessary. And I did that in a lot of areas. And so that voice, it's just followed me my whole life. It's what told me to reach out to an ex-girlfriend who told me about this program that's happening in Boulder, Colorado at Naropa University. She said, there's this Buddhist kind of mental health school that's very holistic. I think you'd like it. And I was dating someone else at the time, and I was like, hey, I'm sorry, I don't know what it is, but I feel the need to reach out to this person right now. So I reached out to her, and she's like, you should check out the school called Naropa. Ended up checking out Naropa, graduated from there 2 years ago with my master's in mental health counseling. It's what moved me out here, Colony's where I'm from. I love Colony. I love my homies. I love my folks, but it's small,
It is.
I came out here when I saw Boulder and Denver, and I was just like, people are health conscious out here. The sky is blue. There's a lot of spirituality. There's a lot of Buddhism. It's what took me out here. It's what told me I don't need to play football anymore and I could work for the airlines. I worked for the airlines and got to travel when I was 20 years old to different countries with my friends and Hawaii for a weekend and just outlandish shit, just because I listened to this voice. So yeah, it's really taken me a long way, and going to your point now, the 60-mile run, that just came into my head. I was like, I need to do this. I don't know what it is, but it was just you got to do this. This goes into a deeper conversation, but I often feel, you and me both, I feel like we have gifts to give to this world, and it's a blessing and a curse sometimes, but I feel like I have things to do in this life, not only for me, but to fulfill my prophecy with God, and to help others. What we do can inspire others.
And it does.
To follow
right?
their dreams.
And it puts you in that position. I understand what you're saying, where you may not feel equipped to accomplish that feat that's set in front of you, but you're going to try regardless.
Right.
And I think going into this race coming up, one of the things that I see in my lens looking into what you're about to endure is how important and how much of a benefit you'll have by the people and the ecosystem that you've created around you, and the support system, I would say. Because in a 100-mile race, you have a crew. It's just you. It really is just you at the end of the day, but it's the people that you've inspired through your actions that are there for you because they want to see you achieve more.
Sure.
So that's something, you know, I'm very grateful that I get to run those last 20 miles with you. And, you know, as I've said, we've talked about the power of company and how just having somebody there, having something, whether it's a person or an animal or something spiritual like a God, can really help push your mind past what it thinks it's capable of.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole basis of what we're trying to tap into, is like, you think you can get this far, but how far can you really go?
Right.
And one thing reminds me when you talk about your first marathon at the Colfax Marathon.
Right.
For full context, that weekend, Devon ran 31 miles on a Saturday, and then on Sunday the race was taking place. So he ran 31 miles on Saturday. I think you ran like 8 miles on Friday.
Right.
Then you hit the 31 miles.
Right.
It was 31, right?
Yeah, 50K.
It was 50K. And then you ran 26 miles on Sunday. And I had ran the half marathon because I was training for, that was a data point race for me, because I wanted to see, you know, if I was on track to run the sub-3 marathon.
Right.
And I finished my race and I started running through the end of the marathon.
Yeah.
Like running backwards to find you. And I remember, you know, jogging, handing out nutrition to like random people because I just had a bunch of stuff ready to give you some stuff too. And then we finally locked eyes.
Yeah.
And what happened? Let's talk about that moment. Let's talk about where you were at before we linked.
I don't know what it is, but this dude, that's the kind of person he is, where he just draws out the best in you. And it's corny and it's cliche, but I'm dog shit tired. My knee hurts. I'm like eating chips. I'm walking. I'm 4 hours in. And then a sign passes me and it's like the 4 hour mark. And I'm like, I'm not fucking doing whatever. But I'm like, eventually at the point where I'm like, whatever, you know, let him go. I'm walking. I see this dude, Dan, and we should probably backpedal a little bit because me and Dan did the boulder. And he's like, come run this thing with me. And me and Dan have done a bunch of training runs by that point. One that sticks out of my head, because I have to give some backstory to give some story on the present, is when we're doing a 20-mile run at a loop out here in Boulder. And we're trying to clip 7-minute miles, 7:30, 7:15, somewhere like that. And we do it for 10 miles. And for me at that point, that's fast. So I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm done.
That's fast for anybody.
That's fast. And he's like, we got 10 more miles. And I'll never forget, because we were near those barns on that one road. And he's like, you're going to be tired as fuck on your last 10 miles of Javelina. And what are you going to do? And it just shook me. And I'm like, ooh, okay.
I was like, instead of saying mile 12, I'm like, mile 92.
Let's go. And that shook me from the inside out. And then me and him just started talking dirty to each other. Like, just the hype talk, like trash talk. Like, I don't even know. It's hard to get to that space of where we get to in those moments. But I remember we finished those last 10 miles, and there was a couple in there that were sub-7. And I'm telling you, I thought I was at 93%. And somehow we found another 10 miles running sub-7 when I never had, like, I don't run sub-7s.
Right.
And we ran about 8 miles at 7 or below.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, you just unlocked, because again, you're such a great athlete. The ceiling is limitless. You don't know what you're capable of. And then we, you know, we push each other. And again, the power of company, and that workout by myself is extremely difficult. But with someone by my side, because then I'm running and I'm talking shit to you, and I'm also like, oh fuck, I got to make sure that I survive. I got to make sure I get there too. You know, I'm not going to be the one to fall off.
Yeah.
When I'm talking the game.
Yeah.
And then, you know, that just goes back and forth.
So he's just being a dog. And then at one point on the run, he's like, yo, bro, you know, it's all good. He was trying to sugarcoat me. He said, yo, it's all good. You can just go behind me. You can smell my wind if you want to. And I said, fuck you talking to me like that. So then we're running shoulder to shoulder, and we just got this running joke, like, who you rubbing elbows with? You know, when
That's
you
right.
look at your elbow and it's touching someone else, who is that person you're touching? Because that is so important. So fast forward, we do Boulder. Again, you know, this dude is fast. So he's running A group, you know, and that's like 6:30 mile pace. And in my head, I'm like, you know, if this dude just keeps going, I'm just going to let him go. But then before that race started, I said, no, I'm not even going to bring my phone because I'm not going to get lost. I'm not going to lose touch with this dude. So I left my phone in the car. I said, I'm just going to stay with him. So we do Boulder. We're running 6:10 mile pace.
Yeah, we averaged like 6:07, like a 38-minute.
And that's
10K.
mind blowing, you know,
at elevation.
So to do that, so we get back to the point on the Colfax. When I'm alone, you know, the voice is screaming. It's all right. You're good. Take your time.
That voice.
Just you can chill. You can walk, which I think is necessary sometimes for sure. I'll probably do it in this 100-mile race a lot. But I also have 3 people I'm running with, and then I got Dan to come out there with me. I got a couple other people that love me a lot that are coming out with me. And that last mile of Colfax, I think I was running 10-minute mile splits before that or slower.
I went back 2.5 miles. So we weren't mile 25. We were still a good, 15, 16 minutes away from the finish.
And I was smoked. Like Dan said, that's about 60 miles in 3 days. Like my legs were pretty finished that day. And I see him, he sees me, he looks at me, and I'm just like, it's like the father that you don't want to disappoint, but he also brings out the best in you, where I see him and I'm just like, God, all right, let's get it. So we picked it up, last 2 miles, 7-minute split or something like that, 6 something.
You just turned it on.
So.
And I remember you said to me after the race, you said, I wish I could figure out how to unlock that feeling. But I don't know if it's possible without having that company.
Without company.
And I've tried too, because I think about that moment a lot too. And I think about like when, all the benefits of how great some workouts have been with you and just with other people too. And thinking about, can I try to put myself into that mindset, into that moment, even though I'm not, like, they're not actually there. Right. And like that happens a lot, like with my speed workouts too, now that I'm doing a lot of short stuff.
Yeah.
It's short, intense workouts.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm hitting these numbers for half a mile, 1K, which is like 0.6 miles. And it's like 4 or 5 minutes of just pain.
Yeah.
And I just try to think, like I look at my idol, like Goggins.
Right.
And like, bro, he's right behind me.
Yeah.
He's right there. And it works. And then I'll link up with someone who I'm practicing with and then run the strongest rep I have yet.
Right.
And it's, it's hard to replicate the power of good company.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's why I'm really excited. And, we ran this morning and we, us obviously shared some great additional lessons and stories and talking about this race. And I think it's going to go extremely well.
Yeah,
and,
man.
We'll be able to look back at this show and this moment and, you'll be able to reflect on how you're feeling about everything and how are you feeling about this race?
I like to say spirituality helps me a lot. I try to meditate daily, and if not daily, then more often than not. That's kind of like a little mantra I have is whatever you're doing, if you can do it more often than not, then you're probably going in a good direction. Because I really think I'm a strong believer that life is the accumulation of your choices. So if I choose 9 times out of 10 to not do something that's healthy, that's more often than not. My life at this current moment is going to be the accumulation of that. Where I'm sitting right now is the accumulation of my choices. Same to you. How you feel in your body, the accumulation of what you eat and what you do. So, yeah, I like to meditate. I like to sit, just kind of silence. And I was trying to find this still spot inside of me. And sometimes I'm hard on myself because I think I don't necessarily ever get too high. But I also don't know if I get too low, which is, again, I think everything can have its strengths and its drawbacks. My mom makes a joke. She says when she gets me something, she expects me to be like excited. And I'm always like, thank you so much. This is awesome. This is great. I appreciate it.
Just right in the middle.
So she makes a joke. She's like, I appreciate it. She's like, I'm going to put that on your eulogy. I appreciate it. I appreciated life. It was cool. So, yeah, to answer your question, I feel it's going to happen. Life's going to keep going. I'm going to go slow. I'm going to go steady. I'm going to connect with my breath, with my meditation. I'm going to have a good time. It's one day. This is a quote that kind of leads my life to some example, at least with feats like these, is you have to make the decision. And, Goggins said it actually in his first book. It's something similar where he's like, you're going to have pain either way. It's the pain of wondering what could have been for the rest of my life, or the pain of dedicating yourself towards something and achieving it. To run 100 miles fucking hurts, bro. Like, I don't even know because I haven't ran that far. But 60 miles hurt. We were laying on the ground. We were slap happy. I was laughing and crying, having fun.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
Walking kind of hurts, but you wake up. I'm here today standing, and I'm going to wake up the next day and following this 100 miles. I'll wake up on Monday, hopefully, God willing, or on Tuesday, and life's going to keep going. So do I suffer for 24 hours, 25 hours, 23 hours, however long it takes, to live with greatness and with achievement and to have that in my heart and on my back? Or do I quit and not do it and wonder what could have been 4 years to come? So, I think that's something that's helped me, is like, put the work in now, because you'll have some pain, but you'll appreciate it later. Or just stop right now, and you might always wonder what could have been. And I don't like that.
That's really the recipe, right? Like, the pain of regret will always be greater than the pain of failure.
Right.
And that's so true. Because at least you go out there and you try, and if you do fail, which I don't think you're going to fail. I think you're going to do great, especially with the people around you and the plan that you've set in place. I think you're going to do very well. But if you hadn't even tried, that feeling is always going to linger for a longer period of time than at least you knowing and you trying. Because like me, we are plan A people. We don't plan to fail, right? We set goals and we have the experience and the historical record of achieving them.
Right.
And so it's difficult to see yourself not achieving. And if you do fail, you can reflect and grow and come back even stronger. I told you today about not making the Boston Marathon. Although I achieved my goal of running 2:57, we needed to run 3 hours. It's still not enough.
Yeah.
So it's weird because I achieved the goal, but I didn't achieve the goal.
Yeah.
And so what that does for me is bring more fuel in the fire, where it's like, okay, 2:54 is now the cutoff. I need to run under 2:50. So like, we were cutting it way too close just to begin with. But also, to that point, I haven't earned that yet. I don't want to be there from, I could have ran 2:50 if I did a downhill race here in Colorado. They have downhill marathons where people just fly.
Yeah.
I did the half marathon in June. I ran 1:19, which is equivalent to like, if you times it by 2, it's a 2:40 marathon. Like, that's the pace I was running. But I'm not there on a real course, course that I would credit myself to actually earning that right to run that race. So I just know there's more growth to be done. And, like you set a goal for this race.
Yeah.
24 hours.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's the goal, to run under 24 hours.
Yeah.
Which for the greatness and joy of me running the last 20, that means we're going to start around 2 a.m. That means it's a long night. But we're ready for it. I mean, I would not have it any other way.
Yeah, and I think what you reminded me too, what you said, is like, don't expect failure. But I think something that I've instilled in myself that's been really helpful is just trusting yourself enough to know that you'll respond to whatever comes up. There's going to be some shit that is unplanned for right now. And I know that's the case. When I used to work for the airlines, we flew standby. We tossed bags on a plane when we were working, and in our free time we would travel and we'd go to these cool places. And one thing with standby that all my friends that worked with me know is that expect the unexpected, or don't expect exactly what you imagine to happen, because there's going to be some wrenches. There's going to be some screwballs. There's going to be some things you didn't expect. You're going to end up in fucking Idaho. You didn't want to go to Idaho. You were trying to go to Florida. Why are you in Idaho? But now I got to figure out how to get from Idaho to Florida. I got to fly to Detroit because Detroit has a connection to Miami, and you're just bouncing. And I think I'm fortunate for that job because it taught me a lot about staying calm and cool under pressure. Obviously sports too, but this job taught me, like, stop freaking out and just respond. Like, this is where you're at. This is your reality. What are you going to do with it? And if we freak out, oh my God, I have to get back. What if I don't get back? I can't work. And if I can't work, then I'm going to lose my job. If I lose my job, throw all that shit out the window. Your first objective, kind of military mindset, is what do I need to do right now? Okay, it's 3 p.m. I'm stuck in a random airport. I need to get back. What's closer to New York? That's where I was living. What's closer to New York? Fucking Chicago. Okay, let's fly to Chicago. Okay, now we're in Chicago. How do I get closer? Boston. Cool. All right, we're in Boston. Now at least we can drive. But like when you freak out, you know, and from a psychological standpoint, Dan kind of talked about it, but this is what I studied. Our prefrontal cortex shuts down when these heightened emotions go online. They come from our limbic system, which is our emotional brain. So our limbic system turns on, and it's good. It's for survival. It's like, hey man, you don't need to think. You just need to know, do I need to get the fuck out of here or do I need to fight? But when that's happening in situations, you can't think, you can't logic, you gotta stay calm. You gotta turn that parasympathetic engagement on, which is that calm nervous system. I gotta relax. I gotta figure out first step. So fast forward with this race next weekend, there's gonna be some shit. I know there's gonna be some shit. But I trust that I've responded for long enough that this is not gonna be any different.
Right.
I'm just gonna show up.
Well, it's like what we talked about this morning, and I was telling you about some of these episodes that I've done before. And it's essentially, you have the formal way of explaining it with all those nice words,
right.
Limbic system and whatnot. But it's essentially taking a big task, like you were talking about. I need to get here. I need to get from point A to point B.
Right.
But there's all these things. It's like, okay, well, let's focus on the first step. Let me take this big workout, this big challenge, this 100-mile run. Let me just focus on the first 10.
Right.
We just focus on getting to the top of the hill.
Right.
We focus on getting to the aid station.
That's it.
It's like breaking it up so that once you get to that point, you're like, I actually feel good. I'm
right.
feeling better than I was feeling 10 minutes ago. And that's, I think, a huge strategy to life. If you can really look at everything and quantify it in that format, you can really succeed. You can really make strides, especially with what I've shared with you over the years or over the months with marathon training. It's such a high volume every week, 60, 70 miles every week, we're working out 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. It's like at the beginning of the week, I'm back at zero. Like, okay, I got to run 70 miles this week. Not in one day,
right.
but in 1 week. It's like on top of work, and that's the thing, like with you, you being an entrepreneur, you own a gym, you do mental health counseling, you're a counselor for your friends as well. And I've come to you with a lot of stuff that goes on in my life, and you're able to manage it all. And I just think that being able to break things up and have that mindset where you just focus on one thing at a time really allows you to succeed a lot better than if you don't just go off the whim.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I remember I did the 50 mile, and I'm looking forward to the first aid station. Because if I get there, that was 10 miles at the time. Then I'm going to refuel, I'm going to recharge, I'm going to get some stuff in my pockets, and I'm going to keep going. The thing after that was the next aid station, which was at about 17 miles, I'm pretty sure. So we got to 17 miles. I knew after that, we were dang near halfway, 25 miles. It was a loop, so we got back to the starting course at mile 27, I want to say, and then we did a different thing. But I knew once I got halfway, I was looking forward to, my mom was at that one. I'm going to see my mom.
Awesome.
I'm going to change my clothes. I'm going to drink some caffeine. I'm going to, it just gave me something to look forward to. Now I'm at 27 miles, cake. All right, next one's 35, whatever. At 35, you got 15 miles. I've been there. I know I've been in that territory before. So
we've been there.
It's familiar. Yeah, we've been there. So, 15 miles at that point, I'm like, I've done this. You get 40 miles, bro, you got 10 miles left, What would Dan say right now? You got 10 miles, baby. It's dessert. And it was literally downhill. We were just bombing downhill. I'm running 7-minute miles. But then I got to mile 43 and I was punched in my face. And, but then you got 7 miles. So you just got to figure it out. But yeah, I appreciate it. It's something I want to be transparent and honest about is that I don't master everything. There's some things in my life that are just learning lessons. And I know you and I talk about this. I'd like to think of life as a playground. And if I'm not playing and if I'm not trying things, then there was no fun in living. What was the point? So I've tried some things. I've tried a lot of things. And I've tried certain things where I've been like, this is just not for me.
Right.
I've learned it's not part of who I want to be in this life, or it's over my head, or I'm filling my cup up too much. We talked a little bit about it, but I've created this idea of something called the forum, and think of the letter 4 with an M next to it. So 4M, forum. And basically I thought of these concepts that really structure my life. It's four concepts, 4 pillars. And it's health, whether that's physical or mental. It's spirituality, whatever that means for you. It's relationships, whether that's your friendships, your family, your intimate partner. And then there's self. And that's my goals, that's my job, that's my salary, that's my occupation, that's my reading, things like that. So I try to think about these often. Like, where am I at? Where are my relationships at? Where are my friendships at? Have I contacted them? Have we hung out? Have I talked to my mom? How's my dad doing? How are my little nephews and nieces doing? Even though I'm only child, in our culture, everyone's your nephew and niece.
Right.
Have I meditated today? Am I praying? Am I actually doing it, or am I just doing it to check it off? Like, am I actually connecting with God, journaling, asking myself, what am I about? Who am I? What are some goals I have that are like now? I think something I've done for a long time is I'll set something. Oh yeah, when I'm 50, I wanna, bro, you're 27. Like, why are you fucking thinking about when you're 50? Like, what needs to get done right now? What are 3-month goals? That's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, big vision, but also like, within these next 3 months, what are some things I want to do? And what am I going to do to get towards them? So I'm constantly thinking of this concept. And something I found is it's hard to balance all these at the same time. It's hard to keep them all full. But what's the most important? Where am I filling up? What needs a little bit more water? Like, it's just checks and balances, due diligence. So I just try to think about those and just see where I'm at in terms of those.
So is it kind of like an opportunity for you to find your homeostasis again, like a checkpoint? Like, if you feel like you're kind of out of balance,
right,
go back to these
pillars.
4 pillars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so.
Where did this come from? Because with your career, you're a mental health counselor, and then you also own a gym.
Right.
A HIIT gym, or how would you describe your gym?
Yeah, HIIT, strength.
Functional strength.
Yeah, functional strength, athletic-based training, yeah.
So do you think that, because from my perspective, it seems that those 4 pillars are kind of shaped through the lifestyle that you live?
Exactly.
Is that right?
Spot on.
Okay.
Smart guy.
Okay. How have these pillars, when you express it to other people, how have people responded to these ideas? Because that's your goal, right? Is that we want to, try to, just like my goal is to express different ideas to people and to show that, hey, you're capable of this, but you have to go through these steps in this process.
Right.
Is that something that you've aimed to share with other people?
Yeah, it's a blueprint, and it's one of the many.
Okay.
And I think different people go about life in different ways. For me, I know these are the things. When I think about everything I do, who I am, decisions I make, everything bleeds through these 4 pillars. Like, it's, what are my goals for myself? How are my friends doing? How are my family doing? If I have a partner, am I close and connected to them? My spirituality, what am I doing in terms of that? And my health, am I running? Am I working out? Am I eating good? When something feels off, I check in and I'm like, where am I missing here? Have I been reading? Again, some people would say it's a lot, and I felt that at different points. I'm like, dang, I set myself up, like I put a lot on myself. So like that Peter Parker line, with great power comes great responsibility. I feel like we were gifted. I feel like everyone has their gifts. And I feel like I have a due diligence to carry those out. If I don't do these things, I'm letting down a lot of people. And I'm letting down myself, but it's also, we have this ability to inspire. And, I don't know. I just think, I think it's a beautiful gift. So
it's challenging for you, I can imagine, just because I looked at what my purpose is and where it all stemmed from. And it started with putting myself in those positions where I can surprise myself and show others what is possible. But the reality is that I don't see the effects and who I'm actually impacting to the magnitude that I think you do. Because, you owning a gym, you being a resource like a mental health counselor, I feel like you have a lot more eyes pointed towards you looking for answers. And I think one of the really difficult things about being that person who people look to is that we're always expected to perform and to know the answer, right? In reality, that may not be the case. It's hardly the case. In reality, 90% of the time we're also confused. And then, 8% of the time we're pretty sure that we're not going to get there. And then 2% of the time we actually succeed. And it's a matter of reminding yourself what that 2% feels like what finishing that race looks like. And then you surprise yourself, like I think about Boulder, like that blew me away, dude. I mean, that was a huge data point for me in my training because it was so short and fast, it's 6 miles. And I'm like, mile 2, he's still here. Mile 3, this guy's still here. He's not a runner. I've been training for this.
Right.
He's still here.
Right.
Mile 4, he's still here. And so on and so forth, right to the finish line. I mean, that to me is incredible because you showed me that you got it, that you're capable of that. And, you can use those lessons to share with other people, if they're looking for answers. And I know that you do retreats as well with people, with men and specifically, is that correct?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So, I feel like on the subject of being a man, it's, there's even more like specificity that you can find within this whole, like these 4 pillars, because, there's different roles and societal like constructs that are set in place. But I think, being a man and being that figure that we're talking about, you're expected to perform, you're expected to provide. And sometimes it could become overwhelming. Like you said, it's really hard to find that balance point where, you got yourself on point, you got your relationships on point,
sure,
and you got your health on point. And then the last one is your spirituality.
Right.
So having all 4 of those balanced all at once, and then, taking on the perspective of being a man, like there's subcategories within those that, in your relationships, you're the husband, you're the boyfriend, you're the big brother.
Right.
All those things can be extremely heavy. And I guess I want to ask you is, how do you see within those 4 pillars, like what changes from being a man, like versus, being a woman and so forth? Like, what do you see as an additional challenge or additional perspective to consider from being a man?
I think one thing that comes up is the fear around vulnerability. And I know that's such a buzzword. So the fear around being honest, the fear around being transparent. Maybe I'll say that. Even this concept, sometimes I'm like, is that too much? Is that good enough? Sometimes I notice this perfectionist come up inside of me. So just even admitting that, kind of like you said, I don't know. Sometimes I sit with people that have kids that are going through divorce. Haven't been through either of those. How am I supposed to help you? You've lived more of a life than I have. You're 57, I'm 27. I get nervous. I get insecure. I think in those moments, something that really helps me is just that I don't have to be perfect. All I have to do right now is just show up as myself, be honest, be real. Yeah. I think to answer your question, that's a big piece of being a man. I think we feel like we have to be perfect. We have to be the strongest person. We gotta be the fastest. We gotta be the best worker. We gotta be the best brother if you have a brother. We gotta be the best husband. You gotta be the best father. Like there's just so much pressure that we put on ourselves as men sometimes. And I think it's okay. And I think the people around us respect us more from what I've seen when we're honest with them. Like, yo, today was not easy and I just don't got it. I'm going to give you what I do have. And that might be a lot different than what I gave you last week. But today, this is my best. And I've had to be very real with myself in that. Dang, what? I was running 20 miles last Saturday. Like today, 4 miles feels like a lot. And that just is what it is. Just being real with like, hey, babe, today I'm down. I got beat from work and from showing up all day for people and I'm just down. And in those moments, like, what does she want to do more? She doesn't want to like run away from me. She wants to be closer to me and help me. I tell my mom I'm a little bit overwhelmed and I can't think about all these things right now that are going on in my life. Instead of her, continuing to ask me questions, she goes, I get it. I love you. Just reach out, if you need anything. I talk to you and even with Dan and a couple of my close friends, when I'm just in the weeds, I feel bad sometimes and I feel guilty. Like, I think that they see me as a leader. And as a leader, I'm like, I have to always be up. I have to always be energetic. I have to always be on my A game. I have to always be strong. I have to always be the best in the room, whatever. But there's been a couple times, even with Dan and some of my other friends, where I'm just like, this week got me. And I'm hella anxious right now. And I just want to chill and sleep. And they don't, and we're still here today. You didn't leave me. And
no, I think that perspective has made me grow a ton as well. Like just the idea of vulnerability and just being real, because if you are honest with yourself and with others, then there's nothing that you ever have to keep track of, right? Because typically, the saying like lies have short legs, and trying to put on a facade that you are this person or you pretend to not be a different type of person, it never lasts because you tend to build up this resume of bullshit.
Yeah, man.
Instead of just being real, and I appreciate that transparency. I think that's helped me with my friendships and my relationships and things like that. So
yeah, we heard this I guess you call it a quote when I was in grad school, and the rope is very spiritual, very Buddhist based. And one of the things they said to us in grad school, they said, imagine you put a picket fence up near the ocean, and the picket fence symbolizes how you want to be seen, what you want people to see, that you want them to read it. So you stick it in the sand and you leave it there. And maybe it's cool, maybe it's straight for a couple of days. And then you start getting some water that's knocking on it and it's starting to move forward and back. And then the waves get hard and now that bitch is swinging. And then one day it just gets smacked down because, sometimes things get strong and get hard and it can't be that picket sign anymore. It can't have people read, what you want it to say. But what does stay there, that sand is still there. The heavy rocks are still there. The things that are grounded and that are true and grounded in reality stay. But the picket fence, which is flimsy, it gets washed up to sea. And that kind of reminds me, like, I could hold up this picket fence. I want you to see me as, excellent at everything I do, a master of all these things, confident all the time, a leader, a good friend. I want you to see me as these things. But in reality, sometimes, I try to be. That's what I strive towards. That's my highest vision. But some days, things get hard. And Devon is what I got. And the Devon that's showing up today is all I've got. And can you accept me for that? And what's real stays,
It's really tough, too. I think that the day and age that we live in only amplifies the issues that you're talking about, right? With like social media. Social media is designed to show highlights. And especially in the direction that it's going, I think it's done a lot of good. I think it's a great resource for education, especially if you're like the content that you share about the things that are going through your life and the lessons that you care to share, but also, influencers who are pursuing fitness and running, whatever it may be, they show the highlights. Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's 2% of the whole pie.
Sure.
Like what I'm after, especially on these long format episodes, is understanding the 90% and understanding like what's really going on. And I think it's really difficult, like for men and women, to see all day on their feeds, like scrolling, seeing like the highlights. And then especially if you're not feeling good that day, it's just nothing but negative, like for your mindset.
Right.
And it's really hard to turn it off too, because it's designed to keep you going, keep you scrolling, and keep you tied to that. So yeah, it's just super interesting. I think that we're at such a unique time. We're at a great advantage and disadvantage with the resources that we have at our fingertips. But I think the one constant variable that hasn't changed throughout history with people and with society is the power of good company. And I'll go back to that. It's just having your people, your community, and the lessons that you can learn from people who are older than you or people who have been through things that you are yet to experience. One of the things that I want you to kind of expand on is another one of those sayings that, you know, we talk about. We've talked about rubbing elbows, who you rubbing elbows with,
Right.
and that's chop wood and carry water.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a funny analogy, you know, and I've actually, if I'm being honest, I never read the book, so I don't even know if this is truly what it's about. But the story I got from it is basically another little wives' tale. You know, it kind of goes into imagining a village, and like I said, spirituality's been my path and something I follow. And one of the stories is, you know, there's a monk of some sort, and what does he do in the morning? His daily chores include chopping wood, going to fetch some water. So he chops wood, carries water, brings it back. Later on in the day, what does he need to do? He chops wood, carries more water, brings it back. And you take that analogy and you apply it to life, and basically the saying goes, whether you're rich or you're poor, you have to stick by these things that guide your life. It doesn't matter what your status is. It doesn't matter who you've become to be. It doesn't matter how much money you've accumulated, the friendships in your life, the relationships in your life. You have to remain faithful to the things that have gotten you to where you've gotten to, whether it's your nutrition, whether it's checking in on the people that mean a lot to you, whether it's your meditation in the morning, whatever it is, you have to continue chopping wood and carrying water. I don't care if you're rich, poor, a dad, a father, I guess they would be the same thing, but you know, a brother. It doesn't matter what you are. Always continue doing the things that have gotten you to where you're at. You have to maintain those responsibilities and those duties. You got to chop wood. You got to carry water. What are you gonna do tomorrow? I don't care what your circumstances are. You better fucking chop wood though.
Exactly.
And you better carry that water.
And that's what reminds me of in the book Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah.
He was talking about when things were really bad in his life and he was out of balance, to summarize. And he started journaling. And then, you know, time passes and gets a girlfriend, gets a job, like life starts getting good. And he starts realizing he's not journaling as much. And he kind of said to himself, he's like, I think you better start journaling again.
Yeah, man.
Because when things are good, you know, there's no need to chop wood and carry water when you have an abundance, right? But when you don't have it, that's when you need it, right?
That's when you need it.
And it's always something you can lean back into.
Yeah.
Like I look at that too, especially I think like a year ago is where I really finalized this, but I was still trying to figure out, you know, is running my thing? Is that what I'm into? And I think now it's more, once I solidify that it is, like this is part of me, it's part of who I am, you know, understanding part of like who I am. I know it's something that I can lean into, like no matter what. And so if there's a morning where I'm not feeling it, I just need to remind myself that this is you. Like this is me chopping wood, is going out for that run, is putting on your shoes and getting it done regardless, because at the end of the day, you're going to have that. And you're going to always be able to lean back on that. Because anytime, I think you can understand too, anytime you go out and do an activity, if you're feeling down, even if it's a spiritual, like we talked about today, running is therapy. It's not even like a big part of it is physical, but it's also a mental piece, because you're able to unwind and relax and kind of zone out. You know, I never listen. Like the only time I bring my phone on a run now is if I'm in a place I don't know, like if I don't know the route. If I know where I'm going, like on Saturday, I ran 12 miles as a 12-mile loop, no phone, just 100 minutes of nothing but you and yourself. And I think that's what we're going to experience together on this. Well, you're going to experience, and I will be witnessing, is with this 100-mile race. It's just you and your thoughts and uncovering what's possible. I think that's amazing.
Something I respect in Dan, you know, I was so hyped when he told me he accomplished his goal time for Boston. And, you know, I was posting it. I was posting it on Instagram, and I was just like, I was hyped for him. I'm like, yo, my dude qualified for Boston. And he's just like, chill. He wasn't saying that, but I can kind of feel like the chill, you know, we gotta wait. And I was just so hyped for him because I saw the work that we put in for all this time. And to see him get his goal, I'm just like, bro, that's fucking amazing. I had a slight taste of like, damn, I want to do that. I wish I was doing that. I want to do Boston. But I was so happy for him. And today was the first time he told me that he didn't make it. He said 11,000 people didn't make it, not just him. But, so he told me about his goal for next year. And I just know that feeling of setting your goal on something, setting your mind on something, and you don't make it. And, the resilience that comes with that. And, I know maybe you don't feel this way, but for me, I would have probably got dark for a little bit. I would have saw that letter and been like, fuck am I doing? What's the point?
It's true.
Is this what I want to do? I'm questioning things. And I think it's just like a fork in the road moment, whatever you decide to do, whether it's you continue to go after this Boston idea, or if it shifts you in a different direction, you realize like this isn't what you want to do. I just think it's really admirable, and it's hard to go through some of those moments in life that aren't ideal.
No, I appreciate that. I think the way you described it is exactly how it is. It's a fork in the road, and it's something that you always have to be prepared for, right? I said it earlier, we're plan A people.
Yeah.
We don't have plan Bs, but we have to learn to be able to adapt to a situation if it doesn't go the way that we planned it.
Yeah.
Right. And, I told you it's more fuel in the fire.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so 2:57 wasn't good enough. Okay, well, how about 2:49?
Yeah.
Like 2 hours, 49 minutes.
Yeah, like you're not going to deny me at a certain point.
Right. You got to be indisputable.
Mm.
And the thing that I will always warrant is, like, I look at setting the next goal, but that's not why I do it. I feel like that's a dangerous way to live your life, is by, okay, like, I set this goal, now this goal is done. Let me set this goal. Let me, like, which I think it naturally occurs that way, but that can't be your only fuel source. Because again, I go back to our idea of, like, what is your purpose, right? Like, that's got to be your fuel source. It can't be a motivating video. It can't be a book you read. It's got to be from within, which I think, embodies all of the pillars that you kind of talk about, right? If you're a father, you do it for your family. Like, a very simple example. It's, for me, it's all about proving to myself that I am capable of more than what I think. Because right now, today, I can't do that. But I know that if I put enough time into it, and I commit, and the choices I make are consistent enough, more often than not, like you said, then eventually it will become inevitable. And someone will achieve it, right? We talked about Kelvin Kiptum, who is the now fastest man alive in the marathon. He ran 2 hours and 35 seconds. He's 23 years old. And before him, no one really thought of that time as possible until he does it. And he will very well be the person to go under 2 hours. And then someone else will do it, and then so on and so forth. It's just about breaking through those barriers and showing others that you're capable of it. But I'm sure if we were to talk to him, he would say something very similar, is that, the reason I run 180 miles a week for 4 months straight is because I'm trying to show others what is truly possible. And that's Eliud Kipchoge's motto, is no human is limited, right? So if you put enough time and you're consistent enough and you dedicate yourself, you can really achieve anything. And I look at you and I look at your life and the things that you're doing and the achievements that you've made. And I want to ask you, like, what do you think your purpose is? Because I know you've had moments in your life, like you talked about, as to, like, who is Devon? Like, what is your prophecy, and what are you after? So what do you think that purpose is?
Yeah, appreciate that. I think it's really day to day. What comes up for me is the book, first of all. There's a book, The Alchemist. I'm not sure if you read it. It's a pretty simple book.
The short book.
Short book. I think kids can read it, honestly. I think it talks a lot about fulfilling, like, it was written. That there's a word in there called maktub. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. but maktub means it was written. And I feel like there was a lot of things that were already written for me that come in this form of visions. So really it's just fulfilling those. And it kind of just shows up differently all the time. Right now in this moment, can I cough when I need to cough? That's a vision I need to fulfill, you know? Can I sit calm? Can I be present? Can I answer the questions that you're asking me without projecting too much into the future? My feet want to be out. I was wearing some nice shoes before this, but once we started sitting, I was like, I want my feet out. So can I live that? Like, it's continuously, can I just become this vision of who I want to become? And, to highlight on something you just mentioned, something that's been big in my life recently is kind of like what you were talking about with goals. And I think this goes into mental health and psychology a lot. But when I try to achieve my goals, I think there's two directions I really think about. And it's, am I trying to achieve this goal because I don't feel like I'm good enough? Am I doing this from a place of lack and the idea that this thing that I'm going to achieve will fulfill me? And I think I've learned that you can fulfill it, but it's not going to fulfill you, because that ghost, they call it in Buddhism, they call it hungry ghosts. They're ghosts with big bellies and small mouths. So they eat and they eat and they eat, and they can eat a lot, but they always need something in their mouth to satiate that feeling. I can keep going and keep doing things and keep achieving, but never feel good enough, and nothing I ever do will feel good enough. So that's one route. Or the second route, which I'm really trying to focus on, is that I know I'm good enough and I know I can achieve these things. So now I just want to see how much I can achieve. And I know when I do these, I have the ability to not only inspire myself, but inspire the people closest to me. So that's the new reason. This 100-mile race, I know I can do it. And I don't mean that to sound any type of way. I know who, in my heart, who I am. I know, my fucking ankles might hurt and my knees might hurt and a lot might happen, but I've seen myself respond in resiliency. And even if I don't achieve it, I know that I'll find something else that I'll do. It's not the end of the world. So it's like I'm doing this because I want to see, if I'm capable of it. I know I'm capable of it, but I want to see how I feel following it, and just to kind of check it off my life story, my maktub, the things that were written for me in my life. So yeah, I think that's just the question to pose to a lot of people is, when you're doing these things, is it because you don't feel like you're good enough? Because you feel like you need this thing to tell you that you're good enough? Or are you doing this because you believe in yourself enough that you want to strive for high standards, that you want to strive for high goals, that you want to strive to see all that you can be? But come from that place of like a full heart. Don't come from that place of being empty and needing this thing to fulfill you, this relationship, this goal, this book. I've done that. I've felt like I'm stupid or that I don't know enough and I need to read every book in the world to feel smart. And I know I'm just setting myself up for failure. That's a long life of misery and just trying to get through a lot of books. And when I look back, I'm going to say, the hell was the point of that? Like, I was smart all along. These things are just, as you say, dessert. It's just whipped cream on top. I just learned a couple new things. So yeah, I just question, not only myself, but to our viewers and to a lot of people, these things that you're going after in your life, you are good enough, and believe that within yourself, and then just follow, the manifesto, whatever you need to accomplish for yourself. Know that you're good enough, and know that it wouldn't be shown to you if you weren't good enough. I wouldn't have 100 miles pop in my head if I didn't do the fucking marathon, and then the 50K, and then the 50 mile, and then the 60 mile. Like, this was just next up, so just, one step at a time, and just, truly believe in yourself, because you can accomplish great things. So trying to take the competition out of it.
Dude, that was beautiful.
Thanks.
That's a great way to wrap things up. Seriously, thank you for sharing that perspective. I think I like what you said about, you're trying to fulfill all these things instead of trying to fulfill yourself. I mean, that, and then, talking about the books, like that's such a clear way for me to understand what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And I think that really speaks heavy volume, especially like in my life too. I just think about, we get really caught up in the weeds, as you said, with the small tasks and trying to check the box, and like you said, be that stake in the ground and exemplify this thing that, you think you are this person, or you want to be perceived as this person, but what really, how you find happiness and how you find success and defining your purpose is through understanding what you need to do within. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, how can people reach you if they want to connect?
It's a good question. I work at Elevated Counseling out here in Denver. We do telehealth. We do in-person. I lead a group right now as well. We have some great clinicians in there that do amazing work. And we're all just men. Something I like to tell guys that are coming to therapists and counselors. We're all just men. I'm paying and have paid a lot of money to be sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in. So that's the only difference. I just enjoy psychology a lot. I'm just a normal dude going through life that's interested in what I'm interested in. So I work at Elevated Counseling. I'm a therapist, clinician up there. E3 Fitness, our gym down in Denver. We do some really cool things. Some HIIT training, some strength training. Social media, Instagram, I think I'm Devon Higher Living. Higher Living's kind of my big vision of what I do, just becoming the best version of yourself. I'm not sure how long I'll be on Instagram. I think about this on and off, but yeah, you can find me there. Other than that, yeah, wherever you see me, Facebook, feel free to reach out. I think I'm a pretty chill dude. I like running, so want to go for a run.
Very wise guy, man. Seriously, thank you. And we'll link all of your social media in the description so people could just click and see what you're all about.
Sounds good, man.
Likewise, if you guys want to connect with us on Instagram and TikTok, that's where we do a lot of short form content. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you guys want to leave a review, it takes a few seconds. If you guys are watching on YouTube and you're enjoying the views with us today, you can feel free to subscribe and never miss an episode. It's never a bad opportunity to spend some time outside, right?
Beautiful day.
Yeah.
Great dude.
Dev, thank you, man.
Thank
Seriously.
you, brother. I appreciate you.
This is awesome.